Spare! Strike! Turkey! The bowling alley. I used to play quite a bit when I was younger, but now I've gone a lot worse. Anyways, what happens when strangers there want to play with more than just their size 10 balls? Grab a blanket, turn off your lights, and prepare to get a split. Come give me and my friends a hug. Okay, several years ago I had my 15th birthday party at a local bowling alley. I was super excited. I had my own t-shirts with everyone's last names on the back, and it was gonna be a black light bowling alley, and it was going to be awesome. So my mom and I are at the bowling alley getting ready for people to come in, and the alley isn't too crowded. There's some pool tables and a bar across the way from the bowling lanes, and there were a few guys there, but otherwise, it was mainly empty. As my friends were trickling in, we were hugging each other and chatting about how our summers had been so far. Obviously, as the girls are coming in, their parents are coming in with them to visit, and talk to my mom and wish me a happy birthday. Well, as more people are arriving, this older gentleman is there, and is asking some of my friends for hugs. Well, I'm just thinking it's somebody's grandfather, and I see my friend Alex give him a hug, and in my head, I'm just like, Ma, it's someone's grandpa. How sweet. So more and more people are arriving, and he comes up to me and goes, So you're the birthday girl. And me being very polite, I'm like, Yes, it is. And he goes, Happy birthday. I thank him, and we go about greeting my newly arrived friends, and the man walks back to the pool tables for a while. Every so often, whenever I would look back behind me after helping get things set up and helping friends get bowling shoes, I would see him and his buddies smiling and whispering to themselves while leering at me and my friends. As my friends and I are getting set up at the bowling lanes, he comes back over to us. He approaches me as I'm putting my shoes down on the nearby chairs and couches near the bowling lane, and he's like, So, do you like giving hugs? Confused and caught off guard, I answer, yeah, I guess, from friends and family. He smiles creepily at me and says, Well, my buddies and I over there, and we were wondering if you guys could come over and give me and my friends a hug. Well, that totally sent alarm bells off in my head, and I said a quick no thank you, and quickly walked over to my mom, my heart pounding as I explained what had just happened. Well, long story short, my mom is the only adult with us for the party. She is not having any of that. She ends up getting one of the employees to drag him out of the bowling alley, his friends walking him back to the car and driving off. Still creeps me out to this day. Birthday party was still fun though, and the creepy guy ended up being a source of laughter later on. He spent 3 hours waiting for me. Little bit of information. This happened in California, near the last month or so of 2010. I am a female, 5'3" and 21 when this happened. I had never had a boyfriend, and was really inexperienced when it comes to the opposite sex, so any type of attention I got was weird and very flattering. So in late November 2010, I got hired at the local bowling alley to work nights during leagues, and their busiest night. Being broke, single, and a loner, I was excited to make some money and meet some people. My first weeks were great, met all my coworkers and the characters that frequented the alley. One busy Friday night, probably 3 weeks into the job, I saw this super cute guy. He was about 5'7", brunette and muscular. All night I kept noticing him staring at me. We'd catch each other's eye, smile, all that jazz. I saw him talking to my coworker Alex at one point, so I figured he'd be fine to talk to. We started chatting on my break, and I found out his name was Will, and he immediately asked for my number. Like an idiot, I gave it to him. Not much longer after we closed, he left, texted me so I'd have his, and the staff began cleaning up. I mentioned to Alex that I'd start chatting up his friend, and we'd exchange numbers. He looked at me like I was crazy and said that he didn't know Will, that they'd just been talking about bowling. I was a little nervous finding out that, but figured he was so nice, so it wouldn't be a problem. Well, I was wrong. Immediately he started texting me. Problem was, he'd only text me late at night. I'd text him during the day and hear nothing back until after 10 p.m. It didn't take me long to figure out that to him, I was just the girl that he wanted to bang. He was constantly asking when he'd see me again, but only ever wanted to hang out once I got off work, which was between 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. He'd come to the alley when I would be working, but pretty much ignore me until he left. Then the text would start that I should come over once I got off. I finally told him I was no longer interested and to stop texting me. I never got a response. Fast forward 2 weeks to a Sunday night, I still had no contact with Will. I was working with only one other person, Kyle, as Sundays were incredibly slow. At around 7:30, I was wandering around, picking up glasses and whatnot, when I got goosebumps all over. Something felt very off. I looked around and saw Will and his friend standing at the door closest to me. They were both staring directly at me with a look I had never seen before, one that made my stomach churn. I brushed it off, ignored him, and continued cleaning. They walked over to a table, sat down, and just kept staring at me. I made my way back to the front desk, told Kyle he and I were close, so he knew all about what had been going on, and just tried to focus on work. They stayed at that table for an hour and continually staring at me, talking to one another but never getting up to buy any games, food, or anything. I was internally freaked out, unsure of what was going on, but tried to keep a calm face. At around 9, Kyle informed me that they had left. The coast was clear, and a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. Fast forward to the end of the night. We closed at 10, but still had to clean all the lanes and tables, put all the balls away, count out, and lock up. We finished around 10:30 and started walking out together. Both our cars were parked on the side of the building that faced the golf course driving range and was always empty after closing. The second my foot stepped out the door, my phone started ringing. It was Will. I turned to Kyle, showed him my phone, and we both began looking all around the lot. We saw no cars in our lot, but in the far end of the golf courses, Kyle noticed a truck, which had to be him. I froze, freaking out when Kyle took action. He told me to get in my car, lock the doors, and get the hell out of there. He'd stay behind to see if anyone followed me, and if they did, he'd call me and I'd go straight to the police station. I booked it out of there and started driving the complete opposite direction of my house. After no call from Kyle and 20 minutes passing, I finally drove home. I lived with 2 roommates at the time, but they were both out of town. Made sure everything was locked and spent a sleepless night watching TV. The next day I saw Kyle and he informed me that after I left, they pulled around to him in their truck and asked where I was and if I was coming back. He told them I had left and wasn't coming back. They asked for my address because we were all supposed to hang out that night and that I probably just forgot. He told them no and to leave me alone. I have not seen or heard from him since then, and I am thrilled about that. I'm not sure what their plan or thought process was that night, and I'm not sure that I want to know. This might not seem all that scary, but for me, it was terrifying. Waiting for us. I was 16 years old and it was an ordinary Saturday night. My friends and I decided to go bowling. We wanted to get drunk before we bowled, so being young kids with nowhere to go, we got our beers and parked in a big parking lot across the street from the bowling alley to drink in my car. It was dark, probably around 8:30 p.m. Some of the businesses were still open, so we parked in the corner of the lot away from everything. We were being a complete bust though. My friend was throwing empty beer cans out of the passenger window. We were smoking joints, and I accidentally had my foot on the brake, so my taillights were lit up for pretty much the entire time we were sitting there. Randomly, a creeper van, Chevy Astro, drives by behind us and comes to a complete stop. He sits behind us for a couple seconds, and it was at this moment that I realized I had my foot on the brake, so I released the brake pedal, and as soon as I did, he started to drive away. I watch him leave in my rearview mirror and start to feel relieved, until I see headlights shine in my rearview and notice he was parked directly behind us in the next row of cars. He turns off his engine and his headlights and just sits. For a brief second, his interior light came on, and I could just see this guy sitting there looking at us. We were a little creeped out, but we ignored it and finished our beers about 15 minutes later. He never got out of his van. We pulled out of the parking spot and headed out towards the bowling alley. As we pulled away, his headlights came on. I felt a little urgency and got out of there quickly, but I didn't see him drive after us, so I thought, whatever, it was just a coincidence, right? We spent about an hour and a half inside the bowling alley. We come outside to my car afterwards, and we're all standing outside, smoking cigarettes, casual conversation. It gets quiet. Without saying anything to each other, we all turned and looked at a few parking spaces down from us. The van, this old, fat, white, stereotypical rapist-looking guy is standing outside of it, with his arms crossed, just staring at us. That's the same van, dude. Let's fucking leave. We tried to play it off cool and get into my car as calm as possible, even though we were all freaking the fuck out. From the driver's seat, I can see him getting into his van. I turn my headlights on, he turns on his. Fuck, I turn my engine on, he turns on his. Fuck. I had backed into my parking spot, and the way the parking lot was angled, if I pulled out normally, I would have to drive by him, and he could easily pull out and follow us. Instead, I put it in reverse and drive backwards through 2 open parking spots, and then slam it into drive and haul ass towards the parking lot exit, under the cover of the row of cars I was previously parked in. I saw him pull out, and my adrenaline is pumping like crazy. I floored it. We never saw him again. We flew off the parking lot ramp into the street, behind the bowling alley, and never looked back. We were probably in a 1-car high-speed chase for 5 minutes before I finally looked in my rear view and realized we were alone. I was real spooked at the time, but looking back, that whole escape sequence was one of the funniest moments I'd ever had,